Reclaim is a podcast for women, by women, on conversations that matter, with your host, Fiske. Together, we will explore the questions of what does it look like to reclaim our sovereignty, our worthiness, our voices as women in this messy world. No topics are barred as we offer roundtable discussions on life, spirituality, politics, and what it means to be a woman in the modern age. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. Fiske here. Welcome to Reclaim the podcast. I am your host. I am sitting in my closet in Los Angeles, California, and it feels so damn good to be home. Last week, I've been traveling for the past, 10 days. First, I went to Vegas last weekend, which, not really my jam. Vegas is not really my jam, but I guess it's cool to say I've been to Vegas, But then last week, I traveled to a small town in Georgia called Macon, Georgia. Well, maybe it's a small town for me. Apparently, it's one of the larger cities of Georgia. But coming from LA, I think everything is small for me. But Macon, Georgia is this lovely, lovely town in the middle of Georgia. It's about an hour and a half south of Atlanta. So I flew in Atlanta, got a lift to Macon, Georgia, and I spoke at a conference that was being held in Macon, Georgia called Your Leadership Recipe Live with McKenna Held. And I was there with some pretty incredible women, including Alexis Morgan, Andrea Renee, and Layla Saad. And the best part is I was able to capture a 2-hour conversation the three of them had, which I will be sharing with you all next week. But anyway, I'm still processing everything that happened in Macon, Georgia, in terms of what moved within me, in terms of what happened in this conference, in terms of my relationship with my truth and with my work and who I am here to serve and what I'm here to do. I mean, it was just so much. And I've been sitting with this kind of muckiness for the past, 3 months now. I had this big launch of Worthy Women Rise in January. I was showing up every single day. It was brilliant and aligned and beautiful. And I have this incredible group of women in my group program, Worthy Women Rise, right now. And then after the launch, I needed to settle in. I didn't feel called to show up. I didn't feel called to say anything online, and that's fine. I gave myself that permission. It's part of growth, right? There's the expansion and the retraction. There's the putting yourself out there and the inward journey. Both are good. Both are necessary. And so I did that. I retracted. I sat with what came up from the launch. I learned so much from that launch experience. And then I eventually figured that I would go back to the way things were before the launch, where I was writing constantly and feeling constantly inspired to share my thoughts on what's going on in the world. And yeah, that never happened. That never fucking happened, people. Instead, I have a lot of half thoughts. I have millions of notes on my computer of a sentence or even a paragraph, but nothing fully formed. And it's been really frustrating, to say the least, especially since, I want to be sharing my stuff online. I love visibility. I love being out there. And so being at this conference and being surrounded by these people and getting to be on stage, actually they didn't have a stage at this event, but being able to speak at this event and use my voice, which is something that has always felt very powerful for me, is the use of my voice. Well, it helped me navigate a little bit of my muckiness, and it helped me see how in some ways I have been pressuring myself to kind of conform into this standard of being this quote-unquote writer, which I do write, and I do love writing, and I will author a book soon. But my power doesn't lie in my writing. My power lies in my truth speaking. My power lies in my self-expression, in my voice. My power lies in teaching. And I think I've kind of forgotten that, and I keep forgetting that, and I keep having to be remembered. So that's where I'm at right now, exploring my own edges around self-expression and around being okay with being in this muckiness and not making it mean anything. And this is where I think a lot of us get really wrapped up and triggered up and tripped up, right? Is we're in a state of uncertainty, we're in a state of transition, or we're not quite sure what's next. and we make it mean a lot of things about who we are. And so if certainty and being on and being in alignment is the goal, then anything that's not that goal feels off. So if certainty gives us safety and gives us happiness and gives us security, then anything that's not certainty has the potential of driving us crazy. It has the potential of making us feel worthless. It has the potential of making us feel like something's broken, something's wrong. But you see, the clinging to the certainty, this rigidity in having things be certain, having things being in control, having your proper diet and proper exercise regimen, and having everything be in this linear box that we've assigned as good for our lives, this rigidity, it's very easy to crack and break, right? It's like a tree that is not able to lean with the wind will crack and break. Rigidity is not the answer, and I've learned this through my journey of binge eating, is that controlling calories, controlling how often I'm at the gym, like this rigidity that I felt that I needed was not actually the answer and was only serving to continue to keep me in a prison of my own making. And so while there is this affection that we have towards rigidity, much of which is because culture loves certainty, but also our own inner psychology is kind of built around the need to have certainty in many ways. When we're not in certainty, it can feel like we are dying. It can feel like everything is wrong. It can feel like we don't belong. It feeds right into our worthiness wound. And so what I want to remind you all, because I'm in there right now, literally in this muck right now, is that there is nothing wrong. And the invitation is to lean into the mess, to just be. Can you be with the uncertainty? Can you be with the unknown? Because what we'll find is that this is the practice, one, and two, this is where the gifts lie. When we can be curious to the possibilities instead of clinging to how it has to be, we're more flexible. We're able to respond better, with greater wholeness. We're able to flow. And I think in a patriarchal, toxic masculine society, blah, 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 the ability to flow is so radical. The ability to stay open, even when things aren't going the way we want it to go, is so radical. Our capacity to be with what is, that container, is expanded the less we try to control the narrative or control the situation or control how our lives are going, and the more we can be and find rootedness in the truth of who we are. So that's where I'm at right now, and it's been, quite the journey, and I am curious to see where it unfolds. So much of me wants to have things tied up in a neat bow and be able to present to you a lesson, and this is what I learned, and that's still not a thing. That's not happening right now in my life, and I'm just allowing that to be okay, and I'll report back. I'll let you all know how that journey is going, but I appreciate all of you for being a witness to my unfolding, and I hope that this message resonated with you in any capacity. Okay, before I bring on this week's guest, Sonali Fiske, I want to take a moment and thank all of you who have become a patron of my Patreon. As I shared in the past couple episodes, I am now officially on Patreon. This is a way that it's an experiment, really, a way that I'm trying to keep this podcast ad-free. So if you feel like you've really gotten something out of this podcast and you're really enjoying the work that goes behind making something like this available to you, please consider becoming a patron. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and you get access to the podcasts early, and you get a really cool ability to be in monthly circle with me. Where I get to support you and witness you and love up on you and answer any of your questions, and also just be in community with you. And there's a couple other things that you can get when you become a patron of my Patreon. So you can learn more by going to my show notes or going to patreon.com/Thais Sky. Every dollar counts. I'm so thankful for all of you who have become a Patreon member in the past week, including Fiona Smith and Colleen McSpirit. Thank you. All of the thank you for supporting this work. It's quite thrilling to see how many of you really want this podcast to keep going. and I will do my best to keep it going. But your support really matters. So if you are enjoying this, please consider becoming a Patreon member, okay? All right, let's bring on Sonali Fiske. So I met Sonali online. I actually don't know, I think just through the community. I found her work, and Sonali is one of the most, like, the kindest, I don't even know how to say it. Like, she just knows how to witness you. She's practicing what she preaches, basically. And what we talk about in this episode is this idea of listening and active listening. And she really does that. And I feel so witnessed when I'm in her presence. And I have a feeling that you're going to just love what she has to say. So to read her bio, Sonali Fiske is a women's leadership and visibility mentor, amplifying the voices of marginalized and underrepresented women leaders. Through her signature program, Pick Your Platform and Raise Your Voice, she mentors women to strengthen and clarify their message and master their authority in the societal spotlight. Sonali also hosts a teleclass series entitled Call to Sacred Activism for women leaders, activists, and advocates. In addition, Sonali is currently on the advisory council of the International Council of Interfaith and Indigenous Women and a partner of the newly formed Women and Girls sector for the Charter for Compassion. You can learn more about her work at sonalifiske.com. She is also currently doing something really, really exciting. She's creating a summit, an opportunity for the amplification of women's voices. You know, there's been so many summits that are problematic in the coaching and entrepreneurial industry. And Sonali is like, I'm going to do something about it. So she created a summit called Dismantling White Dominance in Women's Entrepreneurship, Potent Conversations with Black, Indigenous, Women of Color, Countering the Narrative Right Now. And so it's a free online event. You can sign up by going to biwocmasterclass.com. That's B as in boy, IWOC as in cat, masterclass.com, or you can use your show notes to get there. I recommend that you amplify this summit. Let's start showing the world that there are so many different ways that we can have online events that aren't exclusively for whiteness, right? Doesn't center whiteness. So in this conversation with Sonali, we talk a lot about listening, and I have some questions for you to be percolating on as you're listening. Including, what is the difference for you around hearing somebody and truly listening? When's the last time you felt truly listened to? And how did that feel for you? When's the last time you witnessed somebody in their listening? And how did that feel? And what can you do to begin to exercise the power of listening in your life on a more frequent basis? Hello, Sonali. Welcome to Reclaim the Podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yay. Thank you for having me, Thais. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
It's so exciting that we just discovered that we're both in the same realm of the world, that it's going to be so fun to meet in person.
I know. I'm thrilled to know we're just an hour from each other or less even.
Oh, yeah. So good. So tell me a little bit about yourself for people who are not familiar with you and your work in the world.
Thank you for asking. Well, a little bit about me. This is going to be an audio recording.
Yes.
So you're not necessarily going to see me, in my skin, so to speak. But I do identify as a woman of color. I come from the land of Sri Lanka, which is a beautiful little island in the Indian Ocean, directly south of India. And I've spent my whole life explaining to people here in the United States what that is, where that is. But I'm finding more joy in it now, to really feel really proud about where I come from. Spend my life all assimilating into this dominant race and doing this disappearing act, pretending that Sri Lanka is like this fantasy island-like place that doesn't exist. And it's thrilling to kind of come out of that assimilation process and really speak to my truth and speak up for the message encoded inside of me that my ancestors handed down to me from generation to generation,
Yeah. When did you move to the United States?
I was 12 years old originally, moved back to Sri Lanka and then back here. So collectively, I've lived here about 26 years now.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious because, I moved here from Brazil when I was 7. And so I feel like when we're little, it's so easy for us to want to feel shame around our past and try to become as American as possible. I would love to hear a little bit of your experience.
Yes, I am. That is so true. The whole point of us moving to the United States was from this place of survival. We were fleeing, certain unrest, civil unrest in my country, first of all. Secondly, my parents really wanted a better life for us, all 5 of their daughters. And so it was a place of, we are here to get as much as we can from this land of opportunity. It was never about, we are here to transform this into a land of equality. That's what I'm about now. And that journey took so long to get, to go from what can I get to what am I here? How am I here to serve? How am I here to really make this a place of, equality for all of us? So yes, I've spent many years laying low, keeping everything on the down low, tweaking my hair and my accent and my walk and my clothing, and my God, to unravel all of that mess. It's a jungle. It was a jungle, to have to hack through with this thick, knife. But still working my way, Thais.
Yeah, I'm curious what prompted you to go into that journey, because I feel like so many of us don't, we just go with what we've been given.
True. It's a good question, Thais. A lot of it has to do with several very dark nights of the soul, right? Where I'm in the fetal position, gripping the carpet fibers off the floor, where it was either do or die. There's nowhere else to go but to really see the truth of who I am. And I just got tired of running from myself. But you know how you come to a point where you're just sick and tired of your own bullshit? Yeah, it was several of those experiences that made me really take a deep, hard, long, uncomfortable look at myself.
Yeah.
I still am to a great extent.
Well, but that's a big journey that you went on, from wanting to be invisible and to acclimate and to be like everybody else, to where you are now, where you're really putting a stake in the world of who you are and that you will be visible and you will be heard. What do you feel like is one of the greatest internal tool that has helped you in the journey?
What a great question. A great internal tool that has helped me in my journey has truly been, I think, being willing to be the lone wolf, being willing to be the black sheep, be willing to be the weirdo. I'm a total weirdo in my family. And I don't make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people, and be totally cool with that, just being willing to non-conform, to be a nonconformist, and being willing to say that this is who I am. Yeah. And I hate it. I hate what you see reflected back at you. But nevertheless, this is who I am, it's just been years of that unraveling and being cool with being labelized and trusting that your label of me is none of my business. You go ahead and believe what you need to. Your perception of me is what you need for your journey. It's not mine to own.
Oof, yes. I feel like that is such a big one that I'm constantly navigating. I'm constantly seeing the ways that we project our own stuff onto other people and how we're not ever really witnessing them, how we're just laying our stories upon people and then expecting them to live up to what we want them to be.
So true, sister. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the listening part of that you said.
Yeah.
To really listen.
Tell me about that. Tell me about listening.
Oof. Am I learning that lesson the hard way? My meditation practice has been a deeply, deeply transformative and helpful part of this process Thais, to truly listen to what is emerging from that deeper part of myself, right? As an immigrant, brown immigrant girl, or second generation immigrant, it's been a lot about just charging through and barreling through and, getting to where you need to be, make sure you get your 401k and get that good job and get that good position. But listening, or that aspect of listening to your soul calling, was never a part construct of the immigrant story or the narrative, so listening has been this continuous, arduous process, Thais, and it was through this process of vipassana. Vipassana is this ancient meditation technique that was handed down to the sages of old in India, and that was the pivotal moment in my life when I went on this journey, completely shut down my electronics and shut out the outside world. I'm a single mom. I had to say goodbye to my son, which was deeply difficult and painful, and went on this 10-day silent retreat. And when you have nowhere else to go and nowhere else to run, right? You have no phone to retreat, even a pen and paper. You're forced to just completely confront all those thoughts and feelings that you've been suppressing your whole life, right? That was the pivotal moment in my life, that vipassana, that allowed me to see this is what I'm here to do in this life and in this world, is pay deeper attention to the message that's encoded inside of me. That is what I am here to serve the world. And the listening has deepened still, but there's a long way to go. Such a long way to go. Holy moly,
Yeah, and it's interesting because it is so difficult to listen to ourselves, but I'm also finding that it is so difficult to truly listen to other people. In the feminist and women's empowerment circles, we say stuff like believe women, believe women, believe women. Yet how often do we actually not really believe each other?
So true, sister. And I'm seeing a lot of what you just said. I'm seeing a lot of that in our spiritual entrepreneurship spaces. There's a whole lot of, we're in the speak up culture right now. There's a whole lot of speaking up, whole lot of calling out, whole lot of speaking our truth, which is great. We need this. We're in a watershed moment. We need this for our country and for our industry. But Thais, there's an imbalance there. I strongly feel there isn't a whole lot of listening going on. If we're asking our women and girls to speak up, well, then who's doing the listening? We've also got to examine that part of, there's a duality there that's missing, right? We have to examine that part of ourselves, Thais, there's this saying in spiritual entrepreneurship spaces that we need to be a voice for the voiceless. Man, sister, I cannot tell you how tiresome it is to hear that. I really don't feel that no longer exists.
Yeah.
This need to be a voice for the voiceless.
I feel like at one point that felt such a good thing, right. When before social media, people who, let's say, didn't even have the capacity to read or write, not capacity, the education, they weren't taught how to read and write. So it made sense, like, to speak up for those people because they literally were not given the tools. But we're so beyond that now. There are so many people like you who are speaking pretty loudly. And so that's a great inquiry for us white women to ask ourselves, so how come we aren't listening? How come that listening isn't there?
Yes, ma'am. That's a very good thing you said, Thais. I want, what you said just brings up a beautiful quote by one of my favorite authors, Arundhati Roy. She's an Indian authoress. She said something to the effect of, there's really no such thing as the voiceless. She said, there are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard.
Oof.
Right. So I'm asking us to, unspeak so that the unheard can be heard, um, if we can have equality for marriage in this country, but not for people of color, then let's examine that. What does that look like? Why is that? I'm here to say, Thais, I'm here to stake my claim that this may be controversial, this may piss some people off, but I really feel like the job of the voice for the voiceless no longer exists.
Mm.
Because sister, how that translates to me is that we don't have what we need within our own selves, right? That someone or something convinced us along the way, convinced us otherwise, right? And that Black, brown, Indigenous women are here to counter that narrative, right? That, if you are being a voice for the voiceless, then I'm here to tell you that you're out of a job. You're unemployed.
You're
sorry.
fired.
Oh God!
I know. Sorry, I don't know why I
want to
said
go
that.
there.
No.
But you know what? I know. I get you. You know what I'm saying? That everyone has a voice. I assure you.
Yeah.
Everyone has a voice. So I think I'm asking the dominant race within our races, to kindly unspeak, if that's the word. I don't know. But
and I would love to hear, what does that mean for you to unspeak?
Yes. Thank you for asking it. I think what it means to me is that, you can't be a voice for the voiceless and simultaneously bypass the rallying cry from so many of us in the spiritual entrepreneurship spaces that are saying, look, it's time to take a deeper look at the issues of co-opting our Eastern practices and appropriating the modalities of our ancestral lineage. It's difficult to hear you speak when this is kind of going on in the background. You know what I'm saying? I'm asking the men and women in our spaces to listen deeper, to hard listen, to sacred listen till the end, listen free, listen in spite of the fear and backlash. Listening can be a very courageous and bold act. You don't have to fear that you're not being heard. It's an act of courage, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sit in the silence, right? I think this is the greatest work right now that's needed. So stop fixing, in other words.
Yeah.
Well,
and here's where I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, because I can see how some people could use your words to continue being complicit in their silence. Right? They could use your words as an escape, as, oh, great, I don't have to speak up at all then. I don't have to say anything at all. And so what would you say about that escapism or that line?
Great question, Thais. And I see how that can be like the your way out through the back door, right?
The spiritual bypassing.
For sure, for sure. What I'm speaking to right now in this moment, sister, is that, there's a lot of pain right now that is being expressed among people of color. Not just in spiritual entrepreneurship spaces, but in our country overall. Behind every voice of pain is also a tender voice hoping for your attention and awareness. That's the kind of listening I'm asking for. Listen to that deep intention behind the ferocity, behind the anger, behind the rage, right? It does not give you an excuse to kind of, run out the back door. But to say that behind every voice of hurt is also the sound of redemption and healing, right? But that in order for walk healing or people of color healing, it's going to take, it's more important than white comfort, is what I'm trying to say. you know, and silence is deeply comfortable to a point. Let me just talk and say what I need to so that I can assert my opinion here, kind of thing, you know. But silence is awkward and uncomfortable and it's shitty, you know. The truth is often a whisper. So I'm asking you to listen carefully, to practice your silence with intention, you know, that the loudest voice isn't always the truth.
I know. Wait. We just need to stop right there.
Right.
I'm sensing such a pattern in almost every single woman of color who I've interviewed for the podcast say that in a very different way, but coming back to that truth, that what's the loudest, whether it's now amplified by companies or, you know, it's been co-opted by the greater culture, the truth is evaporated in that vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yes. Yes. And it's going to sound differently to everybody. Everybody who's listening to this right now is getting something different out of that truth.
Absolutely.
You know?
I want to share something you wrote on Instagram. You wrote it about 15 days ago with a beautiful photo of yourself with amazing purple lipstick. I just want to highlight that because it's radiant. You wrote, PSA to the coaches, healers, and entrepreneurs still bypassing social justice and thereby cold shouldering Black, Brown, and Native clients' civil liberties and rights. While you're still pretending we're not here, we hear you because your indifference is speaking for you. We are using our mic to speak to your silence. Okay? Thanks.
Yes. And I see where you're going with that very deeply. You know, it's, we're all navigating this together. There, like I said, there's a lot of ferocity and a lot of speaking up and, you know, fire right now. There's a lot of fire right now. So I'm asking the spiritual white women and men in our spaces to really examine their own truth. You know, let's be willing to examine the truth or the cultural bypassing and the business as usual that's been going on for so long, right?
Yeah.
Of speaking to, you know, kind of building your funnels and building your businesses and then completely ignoring the fact that the house is burning down.
Mm-hmm.
The house is burning. Are you paying attention? Hello, over here. You know what I mean? Like, it's not what you know, it's not what you heard. It's how you listened is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Are you listening to what's happening? You know, to really lean in to what's happening and what's being said by people of color who I feel, honestly, Thais is doing a lot of the heavy lifting right now in social justice causes and in our country, you know. But all I see, sister, to be honest with you, is still a whole lot of bypassing and a whole lot of recentering it to, yeah, but, you know, there's a lot of yeah, butting right now. So we're having to kind of grab the mic.
Yeah.
We're having to kind of grab the mic and make some noise. And it's going to sound ferocious.
Yeah.
It's going to piss you off. You know, but listen, right?
Yeah, I get I feel all the feels when I see you know, other spiritual white women say, but I give back, you know, so my business is built on quote unquote giving back. Mm-hmm. And they feel like that absolves them of any further responsibility. And I just want to take a moment to highlight that giving back is great. Please, we need a recalibration of resources. It's important. It's important to put money where your mouth is. And if you've built a business off of whiteness, no amount of giving back is going to undo the harm that is in the structure of your business.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I think what we're asking for is a real honest to God examination of the system, you know,
Exactly.
The systemic oppression that is being perpetuated still and is growing the more you choose to look the other way, you know? the more you choose to decide that this is not my problem. Or, the more you choose to bypass these truths that are being expressed by women and people of color. It's time to really refocus that lens, right? Because honestly, Thais, the way we're going right now, you're gonna get left behind if you don't.
Yeah.
That's the truth, man. That's the day of reckoning we're in right now. So you better sit up and pay attention, because the narrative is shifting.
Yeah.
We are reimagining it. We are countering it. So hey, join us is what I'm saying. We're kind of leading the way right now. I'm being bold and disruptive when I say that, but just kind of take the back seat this time around. Yeah?
Yeah.
Take the back seat and let us kind of lead the way.
Yeah. I'm curious about, it's interesting that you chose the word fire. This is something I've been sitting with a lot, is how to use my fire. I'm a very fiery Brazilian.
I love that about you.
I have a lot of passion, and I've also seen my fire burn people, and I have seen it transform people. And I've been thinking a lot about it. Okay, I'm just gonna go there. So part of my astrological chart is my north and south node. Are you familiar?
Not enough.
Okay.
Not enough. Tell me.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what's up. So we have a part in our astrological chart that tells us our karmic soul purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells you your north node, which is your purpose, and then your south node, which is, it could be interpreted in a few different ways as your past lives, like who you were back then. So what is your propensity is, what's easiest for you. Or you can also see it as your greatest challenge to living in your purpose and your current karma. And my south node is Leo, which is a very fire sign. But it's also all about the self and how, about pride and putting yourself on the stage. And so the opposite of that, my north node, my purpose here right now is to step into Aquarius. And it's the sign of humanitarian, the sign of teamwork, the sign of inclusivity, the sign of, it's one of the most powerful north node signs. People predict or say, I don't know, that it is this north node placement that can create the most amount of change in the world. So when you said fire, I immediately thought of this as something of my own meditation. And I would love to hear how your relationship is with your fire, and, and where you feel like your edges are with your fire.
I love that question, Thais. Thanks for sharing that with me. I know very little about my astrological signs.
Well, I will tell you everything you need to know.
That's awesome. Because I too, I'm what they call a cusp, I guess. I'm an Aries Pisces cusp.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting indeed. Also fire and water, I believe.
Yes,
or So I find that so intriguing that we embody both. And how perfectly reflective of the duality of our existence, right? Mm-hmm. That we need the light and dark, and the perceived good and bad. And right now, sister, I'm running into my fire. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm running into it. I also recognize, sister, with that. And how that seems to self-express is through my words, is through my poetry, is through my speech, which is good, which can also be, that can also be a kind of the bane of my existence sometimes too. Because here I am being unapologetically me and yet feeling into all this fire. But what I'm attempting to say also is that when I am feeling I need to be recalibrated, when I'm feeling a little kind of ungrounded and kind of stirred up by the ferocity of that fire and all that's happening in our space, when there's so much coming at me, there's one thing, sister, that always calls to me, and that's Mother Ocean. And I live 9 minutes from the ocean, thankfully.
Yeah.
And that is where I go to not quell that fire, but to kind of feel a little bit more of my tame, you know?
I feel like the ocean for me is an access point that reminds me of the vastness of life, you know? So it kind of puts my fire into a perspective.
Yes, indeed. Yes, yes. That's right. That this boundless thing, right? Standing before her and just kind of melting at her feet.
Yes.
So, but sister, I think what I'd like to add to that is let's be willing to feel all of it, you know? Let's be willing to really go to the hottest parts of ourselves in order to alchemize that into what it is that we're here to serve the world, right?
Yeah.
I've spent so much of my life running from that fire because it was too hot. It was too scary. You know, it scared the shit out of me. But I'm just not willing to run anymore, I guess. That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing this from so many sisters like you that are feeling into their fire. Yay for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because every time I touch my fire too closely, whether that's a good or bad thing, there's no judgment in my experience of it, but I am reflected by other people that I am too fiery, which has been a really interesting experience of that cultural uncomfortableness with the
Yes,
anger.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But can we just be okay with, okay, I see Thais really feeling into her fire right now. Okay? And can we just be okay with that? Can we just be, can we just be
Right?
like, can we
Thank
just
you.
tell me
Yes.
more? Thank you. Tell me more. And instead of having to, dissect that or project our own feelings of, not good enoughness or uncomfortableness into it, can we just be okay with Thais being fiery right now and that we're all going to survive? We're all going to make it,
Yeah. So tell me your vision, Sonali. Tell me, like, I don't like to ask the way why you do what you do, but what is the ultimate experience that you will love for us to have in our lifetimes around this?
Mm. Ooh, potent question, sister. And my vision is probably, it's shifting constantly, right? Right here in this moment, I just want some good old fashioned goddamn equality, Can can I just walk into a space and see a well balanced, and not just have to see cute, cis, able bodied, white men and women, Can we just see the full spectrum of our human experience and be okay and be cool with it all, right? And be willing to be uncomfortable in it too and go, why am I feeling this discomfort in my body right now? Okay, let me examine that versus trying to get out of this uncomfortable space right now. I want us to be cool with that. Just be cool with the full spectrum of our human emotions, the full spectrum of our human experience, and have equal representation in positions of power and influence. In our spiritual spaces, in our in our organizations, on our stages, on the political stage. Is that too much to ask for? My God.
We've only been asking for it for
Hundreds of years.
thousands of years, but no, not too much at all.
Yeah. We can do this. We can do this. Right? We can do this.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, we can. Yeah. And so if somebody is listening to this and they're just totally loving, which they obviously have to love, okay, there's no choice here, what you're saying, what For you personally, what would you love for people to do more of? And let's talk specifically white women, and then let's talk women of color. What would you love
Sure.
for white women to do more of or to step more into?
Yes. I'm going to go back to this, Thais, and that is that I'm going to ask white women to be willing to squirm in your seats a little bit more. Be willing to be uncomfortable, It's be willing to get offended,
Mm,
or unsure of how to respond. Be willing to be cool with that. You
mm,
know what? Hey, I really don't know what to say here, but I fucked up.
mm-hmm.
It's okay. Stay there. Just stay there right now. Go ahead and squirm in your chair, because listening is what's going to teach you that patience. It's Your listening is what translates to as your availability. Um, it's what constitutes understanding, right? And it positions us to be challenged and affected and influenced. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So opening our mind and our hearts is freaking scary. I get it, but it's very needed in this world right now. The ability to be uncomfortable in your seat, right?
I just had this thought of maybe a way that we can see really practically through my experience of this listening. When I started awakening to social justice and the harm that I was causing as an unconscious white appearing woman, my first inclination was, I got to start doing something. Right? I got to start doing something. And I recognize now that so much of that was really well intentioned and I did a lot of good by doing that. There was also a tendril, and I really can only see it looking back. I don't know if I could have felt it in that moment, but now I can see there was a tendril of, because then I will appear like a good person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I need to teach this because I want to appear good. I want to appear like I'm on the right side of history. I want to appear like I'm not causing harm. And
Yes.
and so I do a lot of work with my clients around being able to hold the duality of both intentions, right? To be able to not negate one or the other, like then don't take any action at all. It's what we don't want that. But to be able to witness where there may be a nugget or a tendril of this feeling of needing to teach this or show up in this way because you want to appear a certain way. And that I see as a manifestation of the not listening.
Mm. So good, Thais. Yes, I love it. I clearly need to interview you, because there's a lot for you that you're offering us right now in that. Yes, yes. And when it gets uncomfortable and difficult to navigate, this is when we tend to throw our little love and light on it. We tend to throw in a prayer, or nothing wrong with prayer. My God, I need that in my life. But I'm saying, you know, it's okay to be unspiritual, or to be in that gray. It's okay to be
Yeah,
kind of, you
absolutely.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's
This is being
it's going to be
human.
okay. Hmm. Let's be
Yeah.
more human, shall we? Let's
Yeah.
bring our human experiences into
Yes.
spiritual entrepreneurship spaces.
Yes.
Like or like I've heard it said, on the streets, let's just keep it real.
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I also want to read this tweet by a woman, Pamela Getz. I found this on Facebook, and it feels like it's kind of an alignment with the fire. I want to get to it before we kind of move into your recommendations for women of color. So the tweet goes, one of my biggest issues with this world is the requirement of hurt, abused, and abandoned people to be the most reasonable ones, the ones who always must control themselves, the ones who must always comport themselves in a calm, pleasant manner in order to be heard.
Hmm.
And how true is that? That how often we demand of each other as women to not to speak to men that way, or not to be like that, or not to get too angry, and silencing one another. And
Yeah.
why is it that we have to have all this composure when we have seen the wrath of white men, particularly, and they seem to feel completely entitled.
Absolutely, Thais. That's so, deeply important what you just said, that, we're no longer in this culture of being cross-legged, tea and cookies, and having a decent conversation. That time, that era is gone. Yes, it's going to sound, like I said, it's going to sound ferocious. This is going to sound loud and unruly and difficult and challenging, but that's just the landscape we're in right now, and it's going to be deeply uncomfortable. But the time has passed where we can sit down like good girls and have a chat about this.
Yeah.
It's fire right now. It's a time for fire, so we better learn to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. All right. So what would you love? What is your desires for women of color? What would you love for them to see step into more?
So much to say to my beautiful sister, listening into this. I know we're feeling into so much right now, so much coming at us from everywhere. And I think what I want to say, Thais, is I see you, I feel you, I hear you. And yes, some of you are sitting on that, kind of waiting it out, sitting on that fence, still finding your voice. It's okay. Go ahead and be there. You know, you are loved. You are honored. You are magic. Just keep feeling into your creation. Keep feeling into your deeper held truths, and be willing to get super curious with what that is for you. And whatever that is for you, then that is what the world needs, right? It's okay. It's not going to come packaged as a group program, or, as a perfectly marketable little business or program. That it may not. And be okay with that. Be willing to see how it is meant to be served to the world. As difficult and uncomfortable that may be, be willing to sit with that, So I see you, I love you, and just keep being unapologetically you. That's what I got to tell her.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for asking it.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your summit, because we've been seeing online some summits that aren't so great.
You think?
And I want to know all about yours. I want to amplify yours because it's going to be so good. So
Thank you,
good.
sister. Thank you for asking that, for bringing that into the conversation. It really is a time to center more Black, Indigenous, Brown women of color and women identifying leaders, that are kind of still very much in the margins and on the fringes of our society. I see a lot of these summits really centering a whole lot of white women still. And there's so much richness, so much cultural richness, and so many inherent truths that our women of color hold that aren't being expressed and that are still being sidelined. And so this summit that I'm hosting is called Dismantling White Dominance in Women's Entrepreneurship, Potent Conversations with Black, Indigenous Women of Color, Countering the Current Narrative. I know that's a mouthful, but it needs to be said. It all needs to be said.
All of it.
Right? So it is solely and fully and completely going to be centering Black, Indigenous women of color. And there's so much potency there. Their medicine and their truths need to be heard. Oh, man. And I cannot wait for your audience and for people to really see this labor of love, because this is an act of love. Mm-hmm. It's not a virtual summit. This is an act of love that we're birthing into the universe. So, and a lot of these women have so much to say around decolonizing, this systemic, construct of entrepreneurship. I know there's so much to say around the co-opting of our practices and the appropriation of our, our ancestors' gifts. that not everything available from our ancestors is up for grabs, you know? Can we just sit with that for a moment? So I'm so thrilled to bring this summit to the world, Thais, and I just hope everybody enjoys it.
Well, I'll be linking all the links.
Ah, yay.
I'll be
Thank
sharing it in the
you.
show notes for people. Of course, no, this needs to be amplified. I want everyone who's listening to go to sign up, because this is part of the work of listening. This is what, and what a gift, right? So this is the part of our work, but it's also a tremendous gift that we get to listen to these brilliant beings
Yes, ma'am.
share their passion, share their truths. And so I really appreciate you for doing the work of bringing them together.
Thank you, Thais, and thank you for circling it back around to listening, because that truly is this is your chance to truly practice sacred listening, right? To listen to what these women have to say and truly allow them to, right? Allow them to speak their truth and share their medicine with you.
Yeah, amazing. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Sister, thank you. I'm grateful to have these conversations. What unprecedented times we live in, because I'm very, I'm very clear about the fact that this opportunity, speaking with you like this, unfiltered and real and raw, is something my grandmother and mother would have loved to have in their world. They had so many inherent truths that they wanted to speak to and they couldn't, because they just took whatever they could. That's what they were served. So I'm very, very clear about what an honor and privilege it is to be alive in this time in our world. As crazy and screwed up as a lot of this is that we're talking about, it's also a pretty amazing time to be alive.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So I'm thrilled to co-create with you and a joy to be here with you, Thais. So thank you.
Thank you.